Oh, hi everyone. So now it's 4:30 and we have, how many participants we have now? It's around 50 plus. So yeah, then we can start on time, I think. So can I invite Kenny, Alok, and Joseph to turn on the video? Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Kenny. Can I have Joseph? Oh, yeah. Hi, yeah, hi. Okay. Thank you everyone to take your time to join our events today. This event is organized by Alibaba Cloud and supported by 7.5 Degree. So today our topic is the impact of blockchain traceability on enterprise and individuals. So we invite experts from the industries, and I'm sure they will share their experience and very insightful information, and everyone can join, can enjoy, and can benefit from their sharing. So today our agenda will start with a welcome message from Kenny, and followed by a Ask Us Anything section to all our speakers. So I will pass the mic to Alok and he will take over. Thank you, Alok.
Thank you very much for kicking off the meeting and this discussion. Thank you. So it's a pleasure to welcome everyone. My name is Alok Rajiv, and I'm one of the co-founders and also the current CTO of Trames. We are a Singapore-based supply chain tech startup, and we are also an Alibaba Cloud customer. I hope everyone is staying safe, but are able to join this event comfortably from either your home or your offices. And once again, thanks to Alibaba Cloud for hosting this event and allowing us to discuss about a very interesting and cool topic, actually, the impact of blockchain traceability on enterprises and more so on individuals like us. So, but before we begin, I would like to, quickly introduce our esteemed panelists. We have Kenny Tan, head of AntChain International Business, as well as Joseph Lim, head of Tribe Accelerator. And Accelerator, we are also an alumni of, so that's so great to have Joseph here, who I have known for at least over 2 years now. So lately, we have seen some news about AntChain of being the official blockchain partner of UEFA Euro 2020. We are really interested to know about that, as well as many other things which Kenny, you would be speaking about. So glad to invite you over. Kenny, please.
Hey, thanks, Alok. Yeah, I heard that the news of the UEFA have actually attract a lot of people on what we do with AntChain in the international business. Yes, we have a lot of use case that we have done in China itself. As of today, we have more than 50 use cases or scenarios that which is deployed on blockchain in China itself, and all related using on the blockchain itself, right? A lot of people may think that blockchain is related with Bitcoin, but frankly speaking, that is one part of it. But there are very much useful use cases that blockchain that can be deployed on, or even though used in the industry itself, right? Maybe I can share my screen so that I can share more about what we do it here. Okay. Yeah, I think one thing that's very key that we would like to stress here is we do a lot of localizations, and as well as you can see from here how AntChain play in the international arena itself, right? We have the infrastructures, or we use the infrastructures, either it's private cloud or multi-cloud. Definitely we will use the Alibaba Cloud as one of the infrastructures. And on top of the infrastructures will be the AntChain, which is the proprietary technologies from Encrypt itself, right? And you can see there's a solutions layer where we have our task traceability as a service, we have our open platform, we have our digital assets, and etc. Right? We are actually getting more and more solutions from China, from our HQ itself, and to deploy it into local or into the region itself. right? And on top of that is where we're looking at localizations or co-develop with the local providers or local ISPs that to make it the solutions localized, right? And then provide the solutions to the locals provide solutions to the locals, such as supply chain finance, governments, right, smart manufacturing, health, and medications as well, right? So this is what this is the whole stack itself that a part of the localizations that we are currently doing, right? AntChain is also very committed into the international place, and there will be more and more news and updates coming soon with more things that we are going to do in this region or in the international business, right? Stay tuned with us, and there will be much more excitement coming soon. Hello, over to you.
Perfect. Thank you, Kenny. That was very insightful. I wanted to just use this opportunity to reach out to everyone who is participating today. Please feel free to use the chat that's available on the Zoom interface. It should be at the bottom of your panel. If you are coming in from a PC or a Mac device, it should be also available on your phone if you are. I'm sure you're familiar with it. And please use that to put in any questions that you have that you want to direct over to me, Kenny, or Joseph. Alternatively, feel free to also raise your hand from inside the interface of Zoom to for me to unmute you, and you can actually ask your question live. This is a ask us anything chat after all. So before we go into, I mean, those questions, which I would probably, if there are interesting ones along the way, I will pick them up, or we could definitely go over to them at the last. I wanted to kick off this discussion with a couple of interesting points or insights that, I mean, me as a professional in the industry as well, and from a Trames perspective, professionally from a company side as well, we often hear from our clients. But before we kick all that off, right, I wanted to ask maybe the question over to Joseph on digital innovation versus blockchain innovation, right? I mean, being part of Tribe and Tribe Accelerator, you guys meet with a lot of different blockchain startups, as well as people in the industry and the landscape. What's your definition of innovation in the space?
I think innovation is basically creating a solution to solve a problem that customer needs. Someone is in the enterprise context, someone who is willing to pay for this, right? They see this perceived value and they're willing to pay for a technology solution. So I think we often see that based on some of these problems, they actually some of these customers don't really care whether you use blockchain or some other alien technology in the future, right? It's really, can it solve the problem? So I guess there's obviously a huge wave of digitalization, leveraging technologies to just do things more efficiently, right? And of course, in COVID period, that's more rampant than ever because you don't have the privilege of, for example, doing things like in a physical context, right? For example, you want to inspect the factory or you want to check out a plant, a warehouse. You can't, there are restrictions, and technology is really just a tool, a means for facilitating some of these information transfer, facilitating better workflows, better data sharing across multiple parties. So I think the ones that are solving real problems, of course, the pricing and everything, it's all aligned. These are the ones that will be sustainable, and it will play out in the long term rather than just being a fad, a buzzword, unnecessary technology that you insert into a solution. Yep.
Right. So maybe, I mean, that's a good point there, because like you mentioned, to the clients or the customers, it really doesn't matter whether it's blockchain or AI. What matters is the business problem really being solved, right? So maybe I think that's a good point you brought in about innovation and digitalization as well. So Kenny, what are your comments on, digitalization specifically within the space of blockchain, because it's something that you have a lot of understanding about, and we would like to hear your insights.
Well, I think when we talk about digitalizations, as what Joseph mentions, it doesn't mean it's like, it definitely it's not just about blockchain itself, but there's a lot more that will be involved, right? So in terms of what we see here is from a digitalization standpoint. I mean, digitalizations, these words is quite a huge kind of a wording itself, right? So it's very much like what you want to do or with the business of a digital transformations, right? Where I see that from the digital transformations itself, or even whether it's using a blockchain or AI itself, is very much depends on what's the needs of the business itself, right? So to speak that today's there's a lot more which is a shopping that which is go online or even though live stream, live broadcast itself, right? So is it called digitalizations or is it called transformations, right? So it may be a transformation for the business itself, right? Because I transform from the traditional way to a digital platform itself, right? So that is where a business doing the transformations. When we'll talk about digitalization, will be much more like, how does this digitalizations help improve the business itself, or in terms of processes, in terms of how does the trust have been even making stronger with the end users or consumers itself, right? So where I see these two are pretty much different, right? Transformations as in like, transform the business, the way of doing business. With this pandemics, as Joseph mentioned itself, definitely there's a lot of transformations going on, right? Digitalizations where how are we using AI, right, IoT, or even the blockchains to help in terms of how to keep up our digital content itself, or even our data, to make sure that all this are able to support the business process, improve the business process, or even gain more trust to the clients or to the consumer itself.
That's great. I think just to add on a bit as well from our experience, especially talking to a lot of clients who want to go through a digital transformation as part of talking to us, we observed that, I mean, this is a very commonly mistaken term as well. There is digitalization and there's digitization, and very often, I mean, by dictionary definition, digitization just essentially means instead of writing something, you are just typing it on Word. But whether you are actually making use out of the information, are you really transforming your business as such, your processes? That's what digitalization is all about. And I think blockchain innovation is a layer on top of that digitalization. It surely is a very critical component, which is why we are discussing today. But I think they both go hand in hand, which is, I mean, our experience, and definitely reiterates with points that Kenny and Joseph have mentioned as well. So thanks for that insights. But maybe going a bit further, there is, I mean, quite a few. I'm definitely hoping that quite a few people involved in this discussion as well, or the participants also are from the SME space, just like they are from the MNC space as well. And I mean, just from sheer access to resources, capital, I mean, people for that matter, technology, MNCs and SMEs might not have the same access. And at Trames as a company, me and my co-founders always believe that inclusive access to technology is very important. But before I maybe come in with a couple of my points on this space, I wanted to hear from you as well. So maybe Joseph, I would like to start with you. What has been your experience, especially talking to a lot of people in the ecosystem in ASEAN space itself? What's your take on this?
Just to clarify, is the question on SMEs?
SMEs and access for smaller scale industries towards technology like blockchains.
Yeah, I think it depends whether they are on kind of the buy side or sell side of the technology, right? So if you're saying, let's say it's an SME, let's say you're doing a peanut business, right? You run a chain, you run a factory, you are producing peanuts, right? You sell that to the consumers. Should you as a F&B company pick up a technology like that? I think considerations are, is there any additional perceived value to the customer, right? If this customer picks up this bag of peanuts, they see, hey, there's a QR code. Do they really care? Is it blockchain enabled? I think these are the considerations, right? If let's say yes, is the customer able to pay a premium for it, right? I think all these are basic cost benefit questions that on the buy side of the technology, you should be considering, right? Whether, I don't know, is it either increasing your margins on the top line or on the bottom line? I think on the sell side, likely in industry like supply chain, they are going to be very like hyper verticalized. It's a very hyper verticalized space, right? Can SMEs play as a technology provider, pick up something like blockchain, sell it, package it with whatever else they're doing and sell it to another business? Probably yes. Again, same set of considerations. Is the customer willing to pay a premium for that? What problem is it solving for that customer, right? So for some of the SMEs that we've seen, so one example, we had one portfolio company, they basically are doing labels, track and trace solution tied to the blockchain. If customer scans, they can see the provenance of this product. So this SME was actually a seafood business, delivering fresh salmon, right? So that one problem they were trying to solve is that there were a couple of diseases borne by some of this fresh seafood. So in terms of solving that problem for that the end user, which is the customer, trying to see, hey, is this batch of produce or seafood fresh? You would say yes, and then again depends. Is the customer willing to pay the premium? So this typically the process, and how ready are these folks to adopt? That's the other question, right? It's how much is the space? Can they just plug and play a solution? I think for specifically blockchain enabled supply chain solutions, like the one I just mentioned, let's say like QR or RFID, there are ready solutions already. It's just the market, I think, is still figuring out what the consumer really wants and whether this translates into dollars and cents for everyone involved.
Right. I think you made a good point regarding splitting it into two pieces, right? Which is the buyer side and then the seller side of it. And like we all always keep saying, technology is there to solve a problem, but you don't want to use technology if there isn't a problem. Maybe just to focus a little bit on the buyer side, there is a lot of, consumer awareness that is, being built now in a lot of different markets. We saw that first in the Western markets, we see that in the Eastern markets. And I mean, it is something that is becoming quite common. And there are a lot of companies, focusing on that element. So it could be something such as you mentioned, provenance. There are a lot of farm to table initiatives that are coming up. It could be sustainability, or it could be just integrity and authenticity of, where is this food? Who touched my food, right? So for sure, that's something that is coming up. What's your, Kenny, what's your, take as well on the requirement of the market or the normal consumer? I think today's discussion also involves around individuals being affected by blockchains. So what's your comments on that?
Well, I think let's put the technology aside, right? Let's put blockchain technology aside. Let's talk about as a consumer, if today you are able to trace or you're able to understand your food journey itself, will you willing to pay slightly a bit more, or even is the industries or the manufacturing so willing to absorb the cost to let the consumers understand the process or not, right? Definitely, it will. These informations will be impact to the consumer itself, right? And then, of course, from that itself, right? From where I see that, the traceabilities or even the traceability platforms, there are much more things or much more features that can be done. It's not just about traceability, right? And some of the where I see how Alipay's traceabilities in China that we're doing is after the consumer scan the QR code itself, right? They understand the whole journey of the process of the food itself. Then after that, there may be some marketing programs such as discount or further discount or vouchers, for you to spend in the others products and etc., right? Or other platforms to do on the e-commerce itself, right? So these are some of the I would say programs that which allows the consumers to understand better on the products itself, right, and go further with that, right. Well, for SME, from SME standpoints, whether to use blockchain or not, or with, I always say that for SMEs, you will need to see that what you need for yourself, for your SMEs themselves, and as well as their clients, right. Don't go and listen to people say that blockchain is a good stuff and I must go into blockchain, right? Or people say that AI is a good stuff and I want to go to AI, right? So what you want to do with that, right? So first of all, I think SME have to understand that what you want to do with that, right? And why we see that from this traceability standpoint itself is I won't say is a must, but it's quite important as well, right? So, and why it is going to the blockchain, right? So we all know that blockchain is something that you cannot is immutable, right? You cannot change, right? You cannot edit. Today, if I'm a merchant, right, and I put up the information on this blockchain, what does it mean? You will see that it kind of self-declaration as well. I declare that all this process, all these informations are rightfully correct, right? There's no others or other false informations, right? I believe that SME will also understand that if today I put some fault or fake informations on top of the blockchain, I won't be able to edit it. People were able to users or consumers, when they read it, they were able to obtain the informations or the informations that appeared, right? So that is where that is also one of the initiative, right? For SME to say that, looks, I'm willing to put all this information onto the blockchain means what? Means I'm real, right? I'm serious in this market, right? So it actually gain more interest or gain more confidence from the consumer itself, right? In terms of cost, I think there are a lot of platforms available outside. AntChain have as ISVs technology partners who built traceability solutions on top of AntChain traceability platforms, right? We have people, partners like Sinisana, we have partners like XOX. Previously, they do the mooncake traceabilities, and Sinisana is doing a new crab, or we call it a soft shell crab traceability as well, right? So there are a lot of platforms, or ISVs from AntChain in the market where they provide quite substantial and affordable platforms to the SMEs itself, right? So I would say that first of all, understand that what the SME needs, right? Or the SME should understand what they need, right? Second, you should go and find the providers or ISVs, or even look for Alibaba Cloud to understand that where does this should go to, right? And definitely there are partners that our partners that who are doing all these integrations and also platforms to support the SME itself, right? It's not everything that must be like when you heard about blockchain is expensive. I don't think so. Yeah. So then after that, we or Alibaba Cloud will be able to share more information, like how does this work, right? And how does it able to help you? I believe that if you don't need, we will tell you that you don't need that, right? So if you need that, we will tell you that how does it able to help you and improve your process itself, right? Or increase the confidence level of the consumers.
Yeah, if I were to add just a couple of points, I think the more important narrative in play, right? Rather than, of course, I think we can agree that technology is just a means, it's just a tool for facilitating this information's transfer from the buyer and the seller. I think the more pertinent narrative is consumers actually voting with their wallets, right? So I think that there's some research that shoppers are making purchase because of commitment to sustainability, right? And that's why you see all these FMCG brands, whether fashion, whether other retail, whether food, they're telling you about this, there's fair trade here. This is sustainably sourced, right? And based on this, again, the SME's decision to be made is, does this increase the potentially the customer's lifetime value with the company, right? Because if sure you can do something, you can show them, oh, this is the whole story, it's sustainably sourced, but if you can't make it sustainable from a finance and revenue standpoint, then there's no business to keep as a going concern, right? So I think that's and this we have heard from, I think, both corporations and startups alike who are selling technologies, right? If the consumer wants it, we can do it, right? It's just whether they're willing to pay for it, right? If look, I guess even on Trames side, they tell you, I want to track it to the detail. I want every microsecond, this set of data to be uploaded to the blockchain. You tell them, yeah, I can do it. And the question is, can they pay for it, right? Does it make sense? Does it really solve that problem for them? So very similar set of considerations you apply, whether it's a small or big business, small or big customer, right?
Absolutely. I think, Joseph, you definitely raised a good, analogy from our world as well, where, for example, our product, it definitely does use blockchain, but there are parts of it that don't use blockchain, simply because we are there to solve a supply chain problem. Some of them can be solved using a blockchain, but some of them simply, like Kenny said, don't require a blockchain. So we don't use that. I mean, cloud native technology, AI, and there are so many amazing pieces of tech out there, but everything has its own right fit. And it's about finding the right fit and solving specifically that problem, right? And of course, like you mentioned, is there money on the table that is that makes it worth it for a corporate to use it, or in fact an SME, as you mentioned. One point I would like to add is that, especially considering that a lot of people here would be from the supply chain space. Some of us being from the tech space as well, we are aware of many other parts of the industry, which are way more, technology driven at this point. There's a lot more structured technology innovation that has come into many other sectors, and supply chain is one of the oldest industries to some extent, right? We are talking about from the 16th century, with documents like bill of lading as much as 3 centuries old by certain records. And it's very interesting that some of the key innovations that we have seen happen on the supply chain space. Probably the biggest one was containerization of cargo in the late 60s or early 70s. And after that, to me, this could be the next big revolution in the space. And that doesn't necessarily mean a lot of additional upfront cost, because today in technology we are having financial models such as SaaS software, right? Which is a subscription model. You want to use it, you pay a per month cost, and that's it. And a lot of us, me from a startup space as well, we do not buy hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of server equipment. We use our trusted cloud providers like Ali Cloud to provision resources and then use them when we want on demand, and then take them out when we don't want to. And I think, especially as this space is getting more mature with blockchain as well, I believe that such SaaS subscriptions would be available, maybe with no or limited upfront costs. And Trames as a company, that's what we are aspiring to do, and we provide such a service. And I'm sure there are many others that will be coming along as well, which I think, Kenny, you have mentioned a few ISVs as well. I think, Joseph, you would know many as well. And I think this entire ecosystem is slowly coming up. And from the grounds up, it will support not just the big MNCs who have 6 or 7 figure budgets to throw behind this, but the SMEs, because inclusivity is what technology is really all about, right? If you talk about open source and GitHub and everything, we have that's part of the technology DNA, and I'm sure it's going to affect the space as well. So thanks very much for your insights on that. But before I move into the next question, I just want to remind everyone that if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them on the chat. I have a few already here, and I would like to maybe take one of them and address it over the audience. This question is from Aniket Rane. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. On the topic of tracking commodities, is that physical asset over blockchain? The key challenge is how to prevent the user from entering false data. Since if false data is entered, that will be passed on further. How does blockchain solve this problem? Kenny, would you want to take this up?
Well, I think when you talk about how to prevent users from entering false data, right? So in terms of the entire process itself, definitely we hope, all right, or the best case is like, not not letting users or humans to key in the data to prevent mistakes, right? Humans intend to make mistakes, right? So that is where that IoT come into the place, right? There's a lot of conveyor belts, IoT devices, which is automatically get the data, or even though integrated with some IoT machines or some of the machines itself, manufacturing machines, to get all the data directly recorded onto the blockchain itself, right? So of course, like what we said just now, right? Not all SME can afford that, right? So some of them may use a human to actually to key in the data, and errors or mistake intent to happen, right? So if there is errors or mistakes that happens, then I think the users or the SMEs itself, they will need to re-alter the or change or update the informations onto the blockchains accordingly, right? But the original record will be still there. So your alterations or your alterations of the blocks itself will be able to be, appears as in like, this record has been from this to the other records itself, right? So that that's where the users or the consumers, when they track on the items itself, it will be able to appear as well, right? So that is depends on how we actually propose the solutions to the customers itself.
Yeah, I think the validity of the data input at the source, right? I think that's why there's a convergence of technologies. Kenny talked about IoT. That's where I guess other technologies like AI, ML come in also to pre-check data before it even goes in, right? I think the more important point and I guess premise for why you leverage blockchain is not you don't use blockchain to prevent zero errors, right? Use blockchain because to have an immutable record. Something goes in, it's wrong, someone amends it. Both records are still there. You can't just go in and delete and say this never happened, right? So at least you have a traceable record. So I think, yeah, if you're looking at entering false data, depends how you architect your solution, right? You can put smart contracts in place such that you remove the human part away. But at the end of the day, I think the premise of the technology is more of the immutability than I guess accuracy at the point of entry, right?
Perfect. Maybe just to add on top of this, I think this is a very commonly used, statement as well, that, since it's blockchain and there's integrity and immutability, nothing can go wrong, right? I mean, as technologists at the core or being exposed to technology very often, we understand that technology is just enabling humans to be better. And let's not mistake that humans are not going away. Humans are being helped by technology. So, I mean, a dystopian future where, robots run the earth, like, maybe in Terminator, that's quite far away. Let's be honest about it. So because of that, definitely, I mean, if a human really, really wants to do something, it is possible. The question is, how easy is it to detect something like that if something happens? And if so, how many people will be easily able to see that information, see that discord of the traceability, as we call it? Let's say there are 3 actors involved, and it starts off with Joseph, then me, and then Kenny. If I am a bad actor and I do something, my information will mismatch against what's coming behind me, which is Joseph, and in front of me, which is Kenny. I think that itself, that integrity by looking at the information, is an amazing thing to start off, because the ability to transact in trust, right? I mean, that's what supply chain is all about, and I mean, humanity is all about. So I think the ability to record that on using technology is a great start. Hopefully we reach that stage where no one wants to be a bad actor, but up until then, I think we are already off to a good start here. I hope you guys agree as well. All right, I have a few other questions that are coming in, but before we probably go there, I think I see a question regarding an example for real blockchain use cases that have early or quantifiable benefits. I mean, that's a very interesting question that probably we can tag it along as we are taking a couple of other questions that I had in mind for the evening today. So one of them was, impact to daily life. most of us have a professional life, right? But then again, we have our personal too. And I wanted to, hear your insights. I think we touched about this a little bit about before in prominence and farm to table and things like that. But from a common man's perspective in our daily lives, what do you think in the next, 10 years, especially in supply chain, how is blockchain going to make a difference in that? What's your take, Joseph?
Yeah, hard to tell what's going to happen in 10 years. This space moves a bit fast, but I think it's really, again, just underlying technology that provides a means for parties who otherwise might not have interacted, right? Talking about providing a provenance solution from farm to fork. Now the consumer is able to see where it's coming from. And even there've even been solutions that connect the consumer when you're, let's say, paying for the coffee at a point of sale to even tip the farmer. So these are just experiences as a customer that if this technology doesn't exist, you just wouldn't have access to, right? Because if you take it back a couple of years before, I guess systems before that whole supply chain is digitalized, no way you're gonna know where you buy this coffee from, right? Maybe the guy you're buying it from, the guy making the coffee for you, he himself doesn't know, right? He's like, oh yeah, I got it from someone, I got it from my supplier. Who is your supplier? Maybe he knows 1 degree to that layer, right? So how does it impact daily life? I think it's just new means of interactions between different parties of the value chain. I think interesting part about the whole blockchain and Web3 movement is also technology providing incentive mechanisms for parties to interact, to contribute to the said ecosystem, right? So I think that we are going to see more interesting things happening. Maybe it might be consumer to consumer to, I don't know, whoever other parties within the value chain, not just the farmer. Could be somehow maybe one day down the road, I'm incentivized to somehow interact with the person in the warehouse. I don't know, for whatever reason, right? The thing is just this technology is infrastructure to facilitate this. So yeah, wish I could tell you the future, but I think it's just gonna be new ways things are happening, right?
What's your thoughts, Kenny?
I think the more companies and industries, once they're using the blockchain technology itself, we believe that the more trust it creates in every aspect of our life and work. So we always believe that blockchain can help us in terms of resolving the trust issues, right? So the more industries or the more parties that using on the leverage on the blockchain technologies, then I think that the trust issues will be able to be achieved. So everyone will be able to have more trustworthy, right? With all the records transparent, and then that is where that everyone will benefit from there.
Yeah, just to add on, so I think it'll be like very tangible things, right? Like for example, if you think how does, let's say, ML data science affect our daily life, right? You wouldn't think that okay, NTUC is a super tech enabled supermarket. You don't really care, right? It's just that when you go there, you scan the thing, it goes on the counter. Next thing you know, the price is on the screen, right? There's no latency. It's just fast, right? The way they are searching through their SKUs is just optimized, right? So you are just having a better customer experience, whatever that entails, right? Same thing, I think, with just more adoption of technologies like blockchain. Maybe there will be a near future where every consumer really cares a lot about every single thing they picked up, right? I think here where we are in Singapore, maybe we might not have, okay, me at least, personal experience as a consumer, I don't scan every item I pick up, right? Even if I'm picking up a bottle of wine, let's say, and I'm going to pay $50 for it, I'm not going to scan, even if there's a QR code, I'm not going to scan it. I'll probably search a reviews website. Okay, it's how many stars, and that's about it, right? But in a future where you just, as a consumer, require to know everything, like somehow you want to know who's the farmer, right? Who's the farm? Where is this guy based in the world? This technology just facilitates this, right?
Okay,
and it will be invisible. I think
that's a very interesting viewpoint. In a world where I want to know everything about the things I buy, right? I mean, to one extent, regarding the NTUC example you said, when I'm going to a supermarket, the fact that let's say we are buying a particular item, let's say it's a soup, which is commonly liked by people in Singapore, the more and more it's being used and the shelves are being empty, rightfully someone is filling that back up without us even knowing that tomorrow morning when we are there, the item is replenished, right? I mean, something as simple as that. Most people outside technology would be surprised that requires access to data to be able to, do deliveries to all your distribution points, all the different supermarkets, to ensure your item or your SKU is replenished correctly, or the planogram, as if anyone in the industry knows the planogram of your shelves and what the utilization rates is an interesting problem by itself. But most people do not know until, let's say, like we ran out of toilet rolls, unless something very unexpected happens, or in the AI world, black swan events, no one really knows about it. But that brings, I think, a very interesting viewpoint, according to me, that supply chain is a very critical part of all our lives, but it's a back-end function, just like it's in a corporate. We don't know about it unless it doesn't work. So if something is not available, and something like in your, like you mentioned, something along the chain was disrupted. There was, you mentioned regarding seafood. I'm consuming a seafood. I take it for granted that my salmon is great. But if there is a problem, that's when we need access to all this technology to go back and understand what really happened and how to ensure it doesn't happen again. I think this is somewhere, is the blockchain is going to be very critical, and consumers, unlike consumers from 2 decades before, have a lot more voice. We have Twitter, we have Facebook, we have so many social medias available all out there, where we all like to voice our opinions with a face anonymously, and so on and so forth. So the fact, as as a brand, to ensure your brand awareness, your brand loyalty, like you mentioned earlier, for some FMCG goods, Joseph, I believe that it is going to be an essential part of business to ensure that they are able to retain customer loyalty. And if it is not there, I am going to make a, a bold statement that maybe they might not make it in the next 2 decades in the consumer world. Yeah, that's actually my take on it as well. From a more enterprise way of looking at it, I also wanted to add some of the learnings I had in the last year with documents such as bill of lading. With cross-border cross-border trade extremely common, and Singapore being uh, one of the busiest ports in the world, cross-border trade is so very common. And bill of lading, many people in supply chain would be aware, is a very critical document. And the electronic representation of that document was not legally valid up until some time back, in Singapore being among the few first legislations to actually come up and start accepting a digital form of the document. From my startup's capacity, we have been working with IMDA and R3, one of our blockchain technology partners as well, to make that possible. So these kind of technologies are so amazing. For example, the UN and G7 are the ones which are backing it. It's truly amazing to see that this level of government legislative level innovation is being driven, so that it can come down, and not just the corporates and the SMEs, but normal people like us will ultimately get those benefits. But it's really amazing that a lot of people do not know this information, because supply chains really many a times behind the scenes, and people notice it only when something goes wrong. So I have a question. I wanted to add a question in between. So this is a little bit more technical. It's about the more records into a blockchain. The more and more records you add into a blockchain, will the entire thing become slower to execute the next record? It's a very technical question. I think it's more to just put it into context. It's about the fact that if blockchains are really taking over the space, there are a lot of limitations with the technology itself. Is that going to be a limiting factor? Is probably a little bit more, uh, broader scope of this question. What's your take, maybe, Kenny?
Yeah, I think a lot of people is asking about this, that, will the process taking slower or not? In fact, I would say no, right? Now, why I say no is I'm not a very tech guy, but then I can share some of the use cases that we have done. Okay, in the Alipay Traceability app that we are is in China. We have 4 billion products recorded on AntChain, right? More than 100 countries and regions, and covered over 150K product categories. So if today's that, if we purchase anything from Tmall, and you will see that there's a traceability QR code, right? When you scan there, it will actually retrieve all the information from the blockchain itself. Now, with the huge data that has been stored there, right? As I mentioned, there's so much of products has been registered on the blockchain itself, right? There are no symptoms, or there's no records or any complaints says that the process will be slow itself, right? And of course, with the technology itself, AntChain as the financial grade blockchain, definitely we have our key technologies or keys mechanisms that to make the process even faster.
Perfect. I think, before I go, Joseph, do you have any points about maturity of the technology itself? Do you have anything you want to add?
I think like other technologies, you can only get better, more scalable, faster, right? I think it's really like, if there's a demand, consumers are willing to pay, willing to vote with their wallets, people can do more stuff, right? I mean, if you scroll back internet, many years ago, it's like saying, do we have reason to integrate, for example, content and commerce? Back then, people are in the Web 1 days are just like, okay, I've got a flyer, I want to put it on a website. More people on the internet can view it. People that they probably weren't even thinking about stuff that we think about today, like search engine optimization, right? It's just something that's digital. I don't have to print more flyers. Maybe it saves me money. I think the requirements just will keep evolving, and the technology will just keep advancing, more scalable, faster. So I think really as long as it's solving problems, more and more things will evolve. Yeah.
Absolutely agree to that sentiment as well. Because just to answer the question in its broad sense, I believe as well, technology is often driven by demand. Sometimes it's consumer demand, sometimes it's a demand of humanity, like how fast we came up with a vaccine to this pandemic is a good testament of how we are always great at making breakthroughs in technology. So I don't personally believe that technology here would be the limiting factor to innovation in the space. Rightfully, there are a bunch of people rightfully in the 90s who said, yeah, emails are never going to replace physical mail. And today we are here where email is so obsolete today. I mean, that's where we are, and we are talking about people who are having careers in places that, I mean, in sectors that didn't exist 10 years before. In fact, for that matter, there are content creators on online social media platforms when their parents probably didn't even think that such a career is even viable for their kids. So absolutely agree to the sentiment on that. I think we are running towards the end of this panel, so we have only 10 minutes. So I want to ask a few interesting, actually one specific interesting question. This was teased by Kenny a little earlier, which this is regarding what shall I say, the FOMO, or the fear of missing out, or the hype behind new technologies that always keep happening. We had that for the internet and the quote unquote the .com bubble. We had so many other technologies like AI and data that was in the early to last decade. Now blockchain is definitely one out there as well. And when it comes to both SMEs, MNCs, and everyone in general, this usually does affect us as people when it comes to perception. And my question here is, how much of it is really hype, how to see through the hype, and why is it important to see through the hype? Maybe I would start off with Joseph, since you have quite a bit of exposure with a lot of different people through your alumni and networks in the ecosystem?
How to fight FOMO and see through the hype? Honestly,
Yes.
it's like just an HO problem of just running a business, right? If you are trying to propose a solution, that the customer doesn't see the perceived value, willing to pay for it, is this not the right use of the technology? Or I mean, could be a number of factors, right? Maybe the market's not mature yet. I think even your customer has their own customers, right? Maybe it doesn't just make sense for this one company. So if you're talking about, let's say on the buy side, talking about a company like Ferrero, like Nestle, they got their own customers, right? I think if it's all these factors are in place, it becomes sustainable in the long term, right? If you got all these factors like unit economics, I think more often than not, it's a business decision. So I mean, if somehow you can come up with a use of the technology, you can charge this price for it, you can find many people to charge for the next 10 years, then probably in all likelihood you're solving a real problem, right? Because people might try it once for, let's say, PR. They do it, they launch a press release, but if it just doesn't make dollars and cents, you can't do this. You can't have recurring revenue in that way, right? How to identify the right ones? I think this is it's a not so easy to answer problem, because there might be solutions which are just not ready for the market yet also. Could it be is it a lousy solution? Maybe it's just not the right solution for the problems today, right? Yeah.
Fair enough. So time, the importance of time, or is it too early of a solution, right?
Yeah.
Rightfully so. We have enough examples in technology and companies who have created solutions and then they simply, couldn't survive at that era, but then reappeared later. Fair, very fair. Kenny, what's your thoughts on this?
Well, I think every business are different, right? And we know that, every industries are different as well, right? Be it SME, MNC, food industries, fashions industries, every industries have their own needs and stuff, right? And that's where I always advise my clients, right? It's not because of people are using blockchain, you need to use blockchain, right? Go and understand your pain, what you need, right? What you need for your clients, what you need for your consumers, and then target on that and go and resolve the problem itself using technology to resolve, right? But it's not like, this brand or my competitor is using blockchain, I want to use blockchain. That is where I heard a lot, right? Where a lot of my clients come and tell me, hey, this brand, or this my competitors or my same industries are using blockchain, right? And I want to use blockchain, right? And a few more classical use cases. One of the clients says that, during the shipments of the products itself, I want the informations to be recorded every second to the blockchain. I was just like, okay, do you really need that every second to record to the blockchain? Is it first of all, what's products that you are sending over? Is it so critical? Is it so crucial? Right? Is it a vaccine that you need to make sure that the temperature is not below than a certain degrees, or is there certain things that that has a tolerations that you can maybe half an hour or even an hour send the information once, right? So sometimes it's will be from the SMEs or the business itself. They don't know what they need, right? But then they will just see that what people is doing and they want it to be the same way as this. So normally what we'll do is we'll advise the clients, right? You may not just need blockchain, you may need AI, ML, IoT, and more, right? This will able to resolve your problem. Some, maybe just a blockchain will able to resolve your problem. So I would say is that, don't because of the trend, right? You follow the trend and you don't know what is really that you need, right? So I will always advise that, clients to talk to the technology advisors, right? Go to Alibaba Cloud to seek for any of the solutions or advice on what they should do, right? So that they were able to get better pictures and clearer that how does technologies able to help in the SMEs business.
Perfect. So that's absolutely a valid point. I think both of you mentioned it's super critical, knowing what do you want to really solve. I think has been a recurring theme in this panel since the beginning. What does the the customer want? What does the end consumer want? That's always very important, and that should rightfully be what drives every business at its core. I mean, like you mentioned, with SMEs, there is a way more stress for that matter to price and price volatility effects, for example. And like you mentioned, saving every record, for example, on a blockchain has cost associated to it. Cost to adoption is very important and should never be eliminated out of your own internal discussions before you bring something as critical like that into your company strategy. Because you ultimately want your business to be profitable, right? So it's important to know where you're bleeding and whether it's really important and what value it is bringing to the end consumer. It's also a true testament to the fact that, like the topic of this discussion, the impacts of blockchain on the enterprises ultimately are just impacts of a blockchain to the individuals, all of us who are the real consumers or finally the end customers to these enterprises. And if we are a ISV, a tech provider, or an ecosystem driver, we all are there to ultimately serve this end consumer, which is ultimately us. So hopefully this panel has been insightful and fruitful to everyone who has joined here. I once again like to thank Joseph and Kenny for your very valuable insights today. It was a very amazing discussion. I also learned a lot, and there were some very interesting questions that were raised today that we were able to share light on to the rest of the audience. So thank you everyone for making it here today. I hope you all stay safe and have a great evening ahead, or wherever you are, have a great day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alok.
Yeah, thanks Alok for moderating. Thanks Alibaba for the invitation. Take care.